Like I told you, I really like Will Muschamp. He's a great guy. The few times I've been able to just hang around him, and he's a football guy. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I got to hang out with him. He'd just sit there. We literally ask him question after question about football, which I'm sure he was like, eh. But I think he really liked it just because he's a football guy.
Yeah.
But I think he had some bad luck here with defensive injuries specifically over the years. But I mean, it is what it is. It's part of the game, and so they just decided to move on. So I think the writing was on the wall though after the A&M game, and then you got a Ole Miss and give up 50-something points.
And ugly, I mean, there was a lot of ugly spots in that game.
It was bad, but you could tell a lot of missed assignments.
Yeah.
A lot of young guys playing in that game, and Ole Miss just exposes. I think we were playing probably too basic of a defense for some of the young guys that we had out there playing.
Right.
And Lane Kiffin, I mean, he's an offensive guy.
He'll expose you. He'll expose you.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm glad we got you. Since we're talking about this current team, before we get into the coaching stuff, obviously we got the picture on the TV there. I mean, you were an anchor of the offensive line, and you were center, right? You're center. Yeah. So I love talking to former offensive linemen because I always tell people, and I know I probably told you this last year, that I think the most interesting thing is that, I talk ball, we all talk ball, but the people that didn't play, especially that didn't play offensive line, you can talk offensive line, but you really don't know what you're talking about because it's just the intricacies. It's so in depth. It's so complex, and I mean, just having Brad Lawing in here, hearing him talk about it from the defensive side.
Brad,
he was a mad scientist.
Brad is the man.
Yeah, that dude's a mad scientist.
I heard him on Kimberly's podcast.
Yeah. He's a legend.
The first time, and I can't remember either Kimberly or Jeff Barnes were like, "Man, you got to listen to this," and I listened to it, and I could listen to Brad talk about football. All day long.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally a mad scientist. But the reason I talk about that, I want to talk about your take on this current team and the offensive line, because anytime you've got a rusher like Kevin Harris, only 125 yards away from 1,000 yards, I know that's something you can attest to. You take pride in as an offensive lineman, getting your guy to 1,000, and especially this year. I mean, I think it would be. I sure hope he hits it. I'm just thinking in my head. You got Georgia and Kentucky, and I think he should be able to because Kevin Harris, your bell cow back, the way he's ran the ball all year, obviously it speaks for itself. But what have you seen from the Gamecocks offensive line? Because obviously I think Sedarius Hutcherson is the true leader and the anchor for them there at the guard position. You got Eric Douglas, Jovan Gwynn, Dylan Wanham, Turnantine, other guys that have played big roles. But just your overall thoughts. I mean, again, I know they've had troubles in pass pro, and I think I would attribute a lot of that to. I mean, listen, it hasn't been perfect, but when you've got a guy, not knocking him, but when you don't have a very mobile quarterback and, you allow defenses to pin their ears back, it's just going to make it nearly impossible. I think it was Kimry's show. Maybe it was Jeff Barnes. Maybe it was somebody else. But they were basically talking about offensive line play, like the tackle position, where they're talking about like it's the only sport where you're moving backwards and like you're having like basically talking about how hard it is. Like it's like the hardest thing to do, going backwards, keeping your balance. And there's a guy that's way more athletic than you, a lot quicker than you, and you've got to try to like keep him off the quarterback. But just again, talk about offensive line play, what you've seen. Again, anytime you've got a guy that's close to 1,000, you've been doing your job, if nothing else, in the running game. So what you've seen from those guys up front this year?
Yeah, I think for mostly the overall, the offensive line has played really well this year. Hutch has played really good. I tend to draw myself and watch the offensive line.
Yeah, that's where your eyes go.
Yeah, most of the time. You like to see what happens, and then you go to where the ball is. But I thought they played really well. There's been a couple games. Here's the problem. So we've had some sacks given up, and I know you talk about Colin. Yeah, he's not the most mobile guy, but a lot of these games, most of them, we've been down. So we've had to throw the ball or like the Florida game, we just had to come out swinging in the whole second half. So obviously that's going to lead to more pressure, more sacks. It's just the way it goes. The A&M game, nothing was working. We're trying to throw the ball, same thing. So that's just kind of how it goes. But I think overall as a whole, I think the offensive line's played really well. Coach Wolf, I mean, he's a first class guy. He really does know offensive line play. I mean, there's a reason he was with the 49ers. There's a reason he was a head coach at Youngstown State. I mean, the guy just knows how to coach. So I think the offensive line as a whole has played very well. And yeah, speaking of offensive linemen, I mean, to me, the two hardest things to do as an offensive lineman is a center reaching on a reach block on an outside run play. That's super hard. So you got a guy who's just as big as you. He's probably a little more athletic than you are, and he is a whole foot and a half to the side you're running the ball, and you have to get around and reach him while snapping the ball at the same time. And then the other one is blocking a defensive end who's built like he's built like a big tight end, but he moves like a outside linebacker safety, and kick sliding, going backwards, trying to block that guy to keep him off the quarterback. It's a tough deal.
That's why those guys get paid so much in the NFL, right?
Exactly.
That's why those left tackles are paid very handsomely to do their job.
Yeah.